Hey guys, welcome to the True Blue Riffcast with your hosts, Jeremy and Dave. My name is Christine DeBelle, but many of you know me as Susan from A Talking Cat. And as you know, I have to go and get my cheese puffs out of the oven. So have a great time with Jeremy and Dave. See you soon.
Thanks, Christine. This is the True Blue Riffcast, the number one RiffTrax podcast in the world. I am Jeremy, and with me, as always, is...
Hi. Sorry, I missed my cue. I'm Dave. I'm the number one RiffTrax fan in the world, like the podcast says. Only number one podcast is fan. That means me, Dave.
Yes, today, Dave, I'm so excited. We are joined by a very special guest. It's someone that all of our listeners should know. You probably would know her best as Pearl Forrester from MST3K. She was once Crossword Puzzle Clue One Across in the TV Guide Crossword, and she's currently one half of the Bridget and Mary Jo riffing team. It's Mary Jo Pehl.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, my goodness. This is amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. You're welcome.
This is the biggest thing that's ever happened on the True Blue Riffcast.
I think you need to raise your threshold, gentlemen.
The other biggest things that happened is that we had the director of Time Chasers on the podcast. That was before that was like the biggest thing that ever happened. But now we have an even bigger thing of the biggest thing that's ever happened.
Yes.
So
Definitely.
Our lives are just like, we could just die now because we don't have anything
pretty
else to
much
do with our lives.
So how are you today, Mary Jo?
I'm well. I'm good.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, let's just get right into things. Our first question comes to us from some British guy named Matthew J. Elliott. Name sounds kind of familiar. I don't know.
Matthew J. Oh, please. Do we have to start off on that note?
He says, Ian Potter or Matthew Elliott? You can only choose one. You must banish the other to a deserted island.
Well, I'm afraid that there aren't enough contingencies or, there's not enough in that information. Like, who has the chocolate? Who has the pizza? Who has the life-saving, whatever it is. No, I tease. I haven't worked with Ian yet. I've worked with Matthew, and it's a delight. I adore those guys.
Yeah, so do we. They're both wonderful.
I have a really bad joke. Okay, are you ready? Bad joke incoming. Wait a minute.
Oh, man.
They both live in England. Isn't that already a deserted island? Bad joke over.
How did that go for you? How did that joke go for you?
I don't know. I'm pretty pleased with it. I'm feeling pretty good about it, honestly.
Well, I think you can take the rest of the night off then. Like I said, I haven't worked with Ian yet, but I have worked with Matthew. The thing I have to tell you about Matthew J. is his knowledge of A, everything sci-fi, and B, Sherlock Holmes is breathtaking. I've had a couple of questions along the way, things that I could read on Wikipedia, but he always connects the dots for me. And the depth and breadth of his Sherlock Holmes knowledge is breathtaking. So, and we just have a blast working with him.
Yeah, he seems like he definitely knows a lot about that subject. I mean, I know he writes a lot of Sherlock Holmes.
Yes. And not only does he write a lot of that, he and Ian are both so prolific together and independently. I just want to give up.
Oh, please don't do that.
Yeah, we are big fans of Matthew and Ian here.
Yeah, and you and Bridget also.
Well, thank you.
In fact, I believe once Dave said that he loved her.
That is not true. That is not true. That is a lie. It's out of context, and that's the last thing I need. Anyway.
Okay, Mary Jo,
yes.
How did you happen to get started with Mystery Science Theater 3000?
Well, I knew most everyone there from doing stand-up. I knew Frank and Trace and Joel and Mike and Bridget from doing stand-up. We all came up in the Minneapolis comedy scene about the same time. And I didn't even know what Mystery Science Theater was. It was still on KTMA, a local channel. And I think they had just gotten picked up by Comedy Central. Maybe they were the second year maybe into the Comedy Central seasons. And I barely knew what it was because I didn't own a television. I was so broke, I didn't have a TV. And this would have been the days of network TV, and maybe cable was just coming to be. And then one day Bridget called me and she said, Bridget and I did we did shows together. We hung out a bit. She called me, and of course, in my memory, it was very, like she had a sock over the receiver, so I wouldn't recognize her voice. But she said, Mystery Science Theater is looking for another writer. Call Mike. Don't tell him I told you. So I think 30 years later, it's okay to
it was like that.
Tell that story. And then I was so shy and scared. I mustered up all my courage and I called Mike. I can't remember if I called him at home or if I called him at Best Brains, but I called him. And again, in my recollection, I was like, hi, I don't know if you would like another writer, but I would like to be another writer. And then I had a really noisy dot matrix printer in a tiny apartment. And in the middle of my pitch to at least audition me, the printer went off, so he couldn't hear me. So I had to repeat everything. And then they brought me in for a 2-week trial period. And at the end of it, nobody said anything. Like, nobody said, goodbye, or
no one said you're hired.
No, exactly. And so I mustered up all my courage again, and I just thought, I am just going to be professional about this. And I went to Mike and Kevin and Trace's and Jim's office, and I knocked and I said, just each of them individually, I just want to thank you for this opportunity. I have had a great time. And Joel, all of them, and if memory serves, they had a meeting really quick. All of a sudden, they went into the conference room and the doors shut. And then they asked me to stay for another 2 weeks. And at that point, I think they forgot that I was still there on a trial basis. So
they forgot you were a temp.
Yep, exactly.
I had a it's not the same experience, but it's sort of like a quasi similar experience. Because I edit the Riff Wiki, and for like the 1-year anniversary for it years ago, I got to interview. Mike was so gracious to do an audio interview on YouTube. And I was just like, this is the most amazing thing ever. And I was so nervous that I was going to get to talk to this big star, Mike Nelson, one of my idols. And he called, and I thought that I was going to get like like his assistant or something like that.
Mr. Nelson on the line for you. Mr. Nelson on the line for you. Please hold.
Yes, exactly. That's what I thought was going to happen. And he was just like, hi, is Dave there? And I'm like, yeah, this is Dave. Dave, this is Mike Nelson. I was like, and he was so nice. And he put me at ease. And I was just like, oh my goodness, this is like one of the coolest things ever. So, and Mike is so like, he's not like a big time. He's a big shot to all of us, but he doesn't really act like it. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of, I don't know. So like, it's not exactly the same, but it's kind of, on that same kind of wavelength.
Well, I think it's all, all the Minnesotan in all of us. And he's very low key and one of the funniest and smartest. And I just adore him. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me in the least.
How do you feel about Pearl being the best mad? Because she totally is.
Oh, well,
This is true.
I think that's subjective, fellows. But I'll tell you what, I can't speak to that. But what I can say is that I had, what's this phrase? Shoulders to stand on, like Trace and Frank. Seeing it modeled for me in such a great way, and to try and step into that after having seen those two, it was extremely edifying and inspiring, and I totally got my tone from them, and I was happy to carry on what they established. I think, oh my gosh, I watched some of those post segments that they do, and I can't even stand it. They're so funny. So,
well, you did a great job taking over.
Well, thank you.
I'll tell you what. When I was in high school and first introduced to MST3K, I wasn't part of the whole anything that happened like before the Comedy Central, not the Comedy Central, but the Sci-Fi years.
Mm-hmm.
So like my experience with MST3K was everything that happened when you and Kevin and Bill were the Mads.
Right.
So that was my experience. So I have and we both here on the True Blue Riffcast, me and Jeremy, me being the #1 RiffTrax fan.
Yes, as noted in the introduction, yes.
Yes, that is correct. In case anybody forgot, that's kind of like our favorite. We talk about that being our favorite era of MST3K. Wow. So we're very pro that era, and it's and Pearl Forrester is a big part of that. Wow. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Oh, thanks.
So we might be slightly biased there, but
well, I appreciate it.
No, we're completely objective.
It's fact, pure fact.
Yes. What was it like returning for the Netflix episodes of MST3K?
It was really fun for a couple of reasons. It's always fun to be able to do what I get to do, and it was with Bill and Kevin, and I adore them, and they make it so fun. So what's not to love? I got to hang out with Joel and Patton and do all that stuff. What's not to love? I think it was the way it was different for me is that having a few more years under my belt, I'm just much more comfortable on a personal level, more comfortable in my own skin, and able to have more fun with it. I think when I was doing it for Comedy Central, the Sci-Fi channel, I wasn't comfortable doing it. I took it very seriously, and I was always so scared that I was going to screw up, and I had a hard time like saying things and moving at the same time, like doing my blocking and saying my words. And I just felt so much more comfortable and able to have fun with it this time around.
How different was it working on that set? Like, there was this big Kickstarter funded $6 million thing. Was it really that much different doing something that was going to be produced for Netflix, I guess, at that time? And as opposed to doing something like for Comedy Central and the Sci-Fi Network up there in Minnesota?
To me, it was hugely different. We had such a do-it-yourself spirit when we were doing it at the studio in Minneapolis, and we always drew on people on the staff for parts to be filled, and sometimes you'd ask the mailman to hold a prop or something. Seriously, like we just dragooned everyone who was in the studio at that time. And it was a small studio, and it was one camera, and very methodical, and you did a scene and did a scene, did a scene. When I walked into the studio for the Netflix episodes, it was enormous, and there were several stages running concurrently, like the Mads Lair, and then the Satellite of Love. That was all going on concurrently, and the crew was enormous. It was so heavily peopled with people.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
cast members and crew, just like a real TV show. So it was very, very different, and that's one of the things I always loved about the Minneapolis version of Mystery Science Theater, was that do-it-yourself kind of skin of the teeth way of doing it. I like the new episodes. They're fun. It seems like a logical continuation. It was just a whole different beast.
Welcome back from the edit, everybody. We're back.
Silence is okay. It's all right.
No, wait. It's like I'm so high strung. I have to have someone has to be talking all the time. It's kind of,
and it's usually you. I've noticed.
Yes,
that's right.
Boom.
This is correct. It's a
I tease.
it's a
I
disease
tease.
I have.
Oh man.
All great humor has an element of truth.
Yes.
I tease, Dave.
How did you and Bridget start doing your RiffTrax releases?
Well, again, she called me up one day, and she had just moved back from San Diego. I had just moved back from Austin, Texas, to the Twin Cities, and we were in touch here and there, and we've never been out of touch, but we were talking and hanging out. And she called me one day, or maybe she texted me or emailed me, but it was something like, "I need to talk to you." And I'm a person who always thinks I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Even though, I think, oh, I'm going to get fired from something. Even though I don't work for Bridget, I'm sure she's going to fire me for something. So I called her and we were talking, and she just proposed it. And I was like, say no more. I would love to work with you. I think you are so funny. And it's always great to be able to do your comedy,
Yeah.
So that's once again, Bridget saved my employment bacon. So that's how we connected for that.
I am so glad that you guys are doing RiffTrax together. You always sound like you have so much fun while you're doing it, and I love all the shorts. And in fact, last year for our best of 2019. Wonderful World of Tupperware was picked as one of my top 3 shorts of the year.
Aw, thank you.
I also think that you guys bring like I'm like, I don't know if you've noticed, I'm way into RiffTrax.
Oh, kind of like you mentioned at the top of the show, something
exactly,
like that.
Exactly right. I don't know if our audience knows that, but when you guys first started, I was like, this is crazy. Is this going to work? It was like the very first. It was the very first.
Can I interrupt
shorts.
you? Why did you think that?
Why did I think that? Oh,
Yeah.
I was lying. I was being sarcastic. I didn't actually think that it was not going to work.
Oh, okay. All right.
You guys bring such a great kind of like new, fresh element into RiffTrax. And I think that with the RiffTrax brand, it's been expanding a lot, especially under the RiffTrax brand, RiffTrax Presents umbrella between Mary Jo and Bridget and Matthew and Ian and Cole and Janet. It just seems like the RiffTrax Presents brand has been taking a lot of just like a lot more front lines than it used to be. And it just, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's it's much more front lines than it used to be, and I'm really enjoying the new content. So I just wanted to thank you guys for that, because it's so much fun to be a part of this great thing. I'm just so glad that you guys are there.
Well, thanks, because I love it. I love working with Bridget, and the only reason I asked why you thought that, taking you so seriously, is because there has been feedback along the line ever since I took over, became Pearl on the show, and became the primary mad scientist and evil nemesis. A lot of people do respond like that, like how dare she? Who does she think she is? And I'm not accusing you of that.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that when people have a set expectation, and I do see a lot of comments that Bridget and I aren't as funny as Mike, Kevin, and Bill, and I'm not there to compete, actually. If you like us, great. If you don't and you prefer Mike, Kevin, and Bill, great. Whatever works for you. I was just really curious about that, if in fact you were serious. So
no
having experienced that in my whole comedy life. So
yeah, and I can definitely understand that with the whole Pearl Forrester thing. I mean, I remember when it switched hosts and everybody freaked out, like, who is this Mike guy? Is he going to do any good? And why is he taking this from Joel?
Right.
And
right. Yeah.
And so I get that. And then we've noticed, obviously, as me being the actual number one RiffTrax fan and not Dave.
This is not true.
Yeah, no. and in fact, if you go on RiffTrax, I am ranked number one out of all the fans on the. Yes.
I think Yelp has you listed as the number one.
Yeah. But we've noticed there's still after all these years of you guys doing RiffTrax Presents and with Matthew and Ian, there's still this pushback simply because of the fact that it's not Mike, Kevin, and Bill. Like,
right.
It's just they're just like, no, these aren't the guys that are supposed to be doing it.
Yeah. Yes,
it's like we don't want anything different ever. It's
very dogmatic about how you get your comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Dave and I try and do on here is whenever there is a new RiffTrax Presents release from anybody, we promote the crap out of it, and we try and tell people, yes, this stuff is great. It's very funny. It's very well written. They're having a lot of fun doing it. Just give it a chance. That's all we ask of people. And, hopefully that has some effect on some people, because if they're not listening to you guys, then they are missing out on a whole lot of good stuff.
Thanks.
And if I might, I would say that if you're out there and you haven't listened or watched any of the Mary Jo and Bridget riffs, I would recommend the riff of Gravity from, I believe, 2017. I would have to go back and check.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the very best RiffTrax things. So I think that it was very exciting for me. It's like, because Bridget and Mary Jo are doing an actual Hollywood movie on an MP3, the way RiffTrax did them way back when. It was very, very cool, and I think that's one of my favorite RiffTrax things ever.
That was a fun one for sure.
Yeah, it was very enjoyable. Our next question is something that we ask all of our guests. If you were stuck on a deserted island, back again to deserted island. I don't know why that came up twice today. But what?
You have a thing for deserted islands, Jeremy. I don't know.
Yeah. If you can only have 3 riffs with you, if you're stuck on an island and you have 3 riffs, what would you want to have access to?
Oh, geez. Well, I'm going to say one that I love from the MST days is Space Mutiny.
Woo!
I really love. I meant to prepare for this question because it was on your list, and there's one of Mike, Kevin, and Bill, the one with the monster with the giant nipples. It's really new.
Suburban Sasquatch.
Suburban Sasquatch. And then of Bridget and me.
Oh, don't start that, Dave.
Such a Did you know that was a really bad movie? Oh my gosh, breathtaking. And wait, I'd either do that one or their takedown of the room. And then for Bridget and me, Word to the Wives, I really love. And the Maturing Woman, I really love for Bridget and me.
Yes, that one was really entertaining. As being a non-woman, I still, yeah, The Room is a great. We talked about that one at length on here, and it was such a great live show.
Yeah, for real.
All right, I have just a few more questions for you. These come from listeners.
Certainly.
Our first was from one of our patrons, Dan. He said, "This is an absolutely not putting pressure on you question, but any news on the Dot McPeel memoir?"
Oh, how sweet are you!
I loved her pithy book reviews.
Thanks, caller, for calling in and asking that question. I'm still working on it. It has been quite laborious. It's a memoir I'm writing about my mother, who died in 2014, and after she died, we found this recipe box full of. She read voraciously, so we found this recipe box full of 3x5 index cards with notes on all the books she had read. She got to a point where she read so much she couldn't remember what she had read. So about 2011, I think, 2007 or so, she started keeping notes, and there are 400 cards in this recipe box, and her little reviews are hilarious. So I'm writing a memoir around it, and it's been kind of laborious because it's not linear, and also a lot of life happens, which takes you away from your writing. But one of my favorite book reviews of hers is she just had this really great tart tongue sometimes. Some book she wrote, author used the word eschatological on page 4. Made me so mad I slammed the book shut and returned it to the library.
That is great.
Yeah, it's so fun and great, and it just exploring who she was, mother to daughter, child and mother, and seeing these glimpses of her in a way that you don't know when they're alive. You don't know to ask these questions. You don't know this part of them. Mm-hmm. So thank you for asking.
I actually had to look that word up because I wasn't sure what it meant. But yeah, I could see how how you wouldn't like that.
Yeah, she was pretty impatient. She knew when people were being pretentious.
Yeah, that sounds like a word you would use if you're being pretentious, for sure. The next one is from David Jones on Facebook.
Hi, David.
Do you ever
Jones.
find yourself kind of riffing movies and TV shows when you're just watching them as a viewer on your own time?
Oh, actually, what an interesting question. I do not, because I think I get it out of my system. I have many opportunities and avenues to get that out of my system. And it's actually really refreshing to sort of concentrate on a movie or television show in a different way, instead of being poised and at the ready. I mean, I can always make observations, or I think it's really heightened my awareness of discrepancies in the script or continuity errors. But I usually shut down and try and actually watch the thing without having to respond to it.
Yeah, actually try and enjoy it as opposed to working.
Yeah, take it at face value and see what the artist was doing or attempting.
Yeah. And our last question comes from Dawn on Facebook, and she always wondered if you watched a lot of RiffTrax movies for fun, and also if you've ever encountered people from the movies that you've riffed, like the actors and directors.
I do watch a lot of RiffTrax. It's helpful for me to watch Bridget's and mine after we are done recording, so I can see. Everybody hates the sound of their own voice. I know that I can give really flat reads of stuff because I can be droll and dry. So I try to pay attention to that. I'm also, like trying to figure out, maybe that didn't land as well as we wanted to. Did that work? So I do that for educational purposes. And I watch Mike, Kevin, and Bill because I think they're funny. And some of those movies, I cannot believe where they found them. And yes, I do. And sometimes I even go back and revisit some of the old Mystery Science Theater. It took me, I would say, 25 years before I could go watch any of the ones that I was on.
Yeah.
But, I'm just sort of inhabit a self-conscious self, but I have really come to enjoy those and appreciate them.
Yeah, I have the same thoughts as you do about how in the world they find some of these movies, like especially Lichen Colony, the one they just put out.
Mm-hmm.
Because
yes,
I had seen some bad movies, and obviously most of them came through RiffTrax, but that is seriously one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like I can't believe it. I honestly don't believe that I watched that riff. Like
I can believe it.
Isn't it amazing though when you think the bottom of the barrel has been scraped, there's a new bottom that comes along?
Yes.
I'm always amazed that it's so amazing to me.
Well, yeah, when you thought the bottom of the barrel was scraped, then you find Haunted Ween.
Oh God. For the longest time, so many people thought the very bottom was Roller Gator. And I was like, guys, no, Roller Gator's awesome. But then Lichen Colony came around, and I was just like, yeah, you guys thought Roller Gator was bad.
And you're so
this.
innocent. You're so innocent that you think that's the worst movie. Just hang on.
Oh man. Yeah, they do a great job of finding these things, and you guys get some good stuff too. Obviously, you just had High School USA released last week.
Oh yeah,
and that was so 80s it hurt.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good way to put it. Yep.
Like that was.
Yes, sir.
Like, and I love the ending to that because it's just so like. Oh, here's a robot at the dance, and it pants the guy, and here's the picture of the guy's butt. The end. Like,
what I think is amazing? That is one movie that embodies this sort of my amazement that somebody wrote that and got paid for it. And God bless anyone who's working and getting their stuff sold, but when you're a frustrated artist like myself who can't get anything off the ground, like, but that got made. Okay. It's just sort of baffling. Yeah,
I would much rather see a comedy show about a Renaissance festival.
I know. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. Oof.
But such is life, I guess.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
There's a very famous story out there about the day you guys watched The Final Sacrifice, and I guess you were sick or something. Tell me if I'm getting the story wrong. You had been sick or you didn't have enough sick days, and there was the character named Zap Rousdower came on, and it was revealed that his name was Zap Rousdower. And you were just like, I'm out. I don't have any sick days left, but I have to sit here and watch this movie where this dude's name is Zap Rousdower. Is that a true story, or is that apocrypha?
You mean I was the one who said that? Or somebody did.
Yeah, somebody for some reason in my mind that story comes from that's a Mary Jo Pehl story.
Dave, I don't know where you got that, because I could ascribe it to a poor memory. I don't remember that because we didn't really have sick days at Best Brains. Like if you were sick, you could not show up. So I always had that out. But it's quite possible that I showed up and the second day of writing and was like, "What the actual fuck? Can I say fuck on your show?"
Yes, I edit with Bill's ice cream bunny laugh. That's our censor sound. So.
Okay.
Yes, he uses it. He uses it a lot when I
Well,
go
I thought
off,
you were
but
going
anyway.
to talk about Manos and how stunned we all were as it unfolded in the writing room, because that is a very visceral recollection. That
the first time you've seen Manos, yeah, I can imagine.
And we hadn't watched it all the way through. This was before we started watching movies all the way through to ensure such mishaps didn't occur. But I remember us all sitting there just kind of stunned, for want of a better word, and it was kind of exhausting. I just have this recollection like all of us were sitting there with our eyes huge and mouths agape.
Oh my gosh.
Did you have that same reaction when you saw Hobgoblins for the first time? These are the kinds of questions.
Not really Hobgoblins. That was more annoying than breathtakingly pointless and creepy and incomprehensible.
What would you say, like, in the sci-fi years, during the sci-fi years of MST3K, what was the worst experience you had with that, where something came on and just like, oh my God, I can't believe we're doing this movie, but we kind of have to because we're locked in or
honestly,
like
I couldn't tell you, because the bar had been set so low with Manos that once you got through Manos, I honestly don't remember. And I do think it was because we baptism by fire with Manos. And after that, everything's a breeze.
Yeah, then you get to things like The Room and Birdemic.
Right. And I'm sorry, I have a terrible memory, and we did so many movies that I usually like to sort of prep myself, to remind myself, and I didn't do my homework, even though you sent me the questions.
Oh, that's perfectly okay.
That's totally fine, because hey, I never do my homework on here. I just come up here and just blather. But one more question, and it's kind of along the same lines that we've been talking about here the last couple of questions, is that Manos has now become sort of like part of, if not the popular culture at large, definitely the B-movie subculture. Manos is a big staple, and you guys were able to bring that into a lot of consciousness.
Yay.
You guys have been able to raise up
You're right.
a lot of movies that would have stayed buried. How do you feel about resurrecting movies like Manos that otherwise would have stayed just completely dead? Like, you ever think about that? Like,
no, I never think of it. No.
This is all our fault. Oh
no,
God!
I think it is really interesting that these movies get a second life. Like, I think about directors like Bill Rebane from Wisconsin, and there's another director from Baltimore who did a movie we did for Cinematic Titanic, and I'm sorry, the name escapes me, but these homegrown auteurs who are getting a larger audience, and because we've had to get rights for these movies, they're somewhat on board. They have a sense of humor, but they did the work. It's not easy to make a movie, even a shitty movie. So
yeah.
I think that it's just really interesting. And then I think there's a Manos remake, right?
Yeah, Manos returns.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's just fascinating that these people want to get legs under another iteration of it, which is what Mystery Science Theater did for itself. There's new seasons. So that's about all the thought I've put into that.
I don't know that it requires much more than that, honestly. Well, I guess I do have one more question for you. Do you have any feelings toward
Yes, I have feelings.
RiffTrax? Toward RiffTrax, redoing movies that they did during the MST era, because I know there's a lot of discussion about that when that happens, like Final Justice and the Magic Sword and things like that. Of course, Space Mutiny and Time Chasers. And
do people think that they're sacrosanct?
They don't want them to redo them because they feel maybe that it takes away from the original somehow.
Oh no, I think there's room for both. Guess what? There's still bad movies. And guess what? There's new perspectives to have on those bad movies. And we continue to create and do new versions of everything. So
Dave and I feel the same way about that. We feel that pretty much everything that was covered on MST should be a fair game for RiffTrax to do also. Because like you said, it's a fresh look at everything. It's a whole new set of writers. You know, it's not like rehashing the same jokes or anything like that. So yeah,
yes,
we feel the same
we have
way.
a very like my attitude is that anything we can bring under the RiffTrax umbrella, I am all for it, because I love RiffTrax. And my thing is that, hey, look, we can redo a movie once every 25 years. It's going to be fine. Okay.
Right,
Everything's going to be fine.
So what you guys just said, cut out my rambling, but save what you guys said, because that's what I was going to. Because I guess my bottom line is, well, why not? I mean, the movies that Bridget and I have done that Mystery Science Theater already did, we come at it with a new angle, and we work really hard not to replicate jokes. So, and my bottom line is, you are always welcome to not buy the new version, to not watch the new version.
Yeah.
No hard feelings.
Oh, by the way, your guys' riff of Angel's Revenge, also one of the best things RiffTrax has ever done.
It was
Just
so
saying,
good.
That's amazing. I love that.
Wow, thank you.
It was so
Thank
good.
you.
Well, I think that actually is everything we have today. Unless Dave
Well,
has
it's been a
anything
delight,
else.
you guys. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you so much, Mary Jo. It's been a real honor to be able to talk to you.
It's been quite a not surreal, but very. Go ahead and edit
Yes,
that out.
I will. Trust me, I will.
Please make me sound eloquent, and please don't let Matthew J. or Ian hear what I had to say about them. If there's got to be a way that you can prevent them from listening to this podcast. I tease them. I tease my pals from across the
No,
pond.
if I can make Dave sound good, I can make you sound good. So don't worry about it.
Yes. Oh,
No.
everyone's got jokes. Party hard.
I guess I'll let you two sort that out, and I will awkwardly sign off.
Okay, thank you so much once again.
Thanks, you guys.
I'm Jeremy. You can find me at pbandawesome.com. You can send me emails, jeremy@trueblueriffcast.com. And you can follow the podcast on Twitter at tbriffcast.
And I'm Dave Chadwick, a.k.a. Sugar Ray Dodge. Check him out on the web at sugarraydodge.com. Send me emails at dave@trueblueriffcast.com.
And we'll see you guys next time right here on the True Blue Riffcast.